far south side. March 1980 to July 1985. Frank Lumpkin never forgot the first phone call that afternoon. Although he was off work that day with a broken foot, he had stopped by the pay office at Wisconsin Steel, where he'd labored for more than 30 years to pick up checks totaling $8,084.57, money he was due in back vacation pay. He still had 13 weeks of vacation coming, accumulated over 5 years, and he was about to take a long-planned trip to Africa. But March 28th, Black Friday as it would be called, was about to become absolutely unforgettable. Wisconsin Steel's hulking metal sheds stretched south and a bit eastward from the intersection of Torrance Avenue and East 106th Street in a neighborhood that most residents called Irondale, even if Chicago city maps labeled it South Deering. William Deering was a long-forgotten industrialist who had co-founded International Harvester Company in 1902. Wisconsin's oldest corporate ancestor, Brown's Mill, dated from 1875 and had been South Chicago's first steel plant. 6 years later, Andrew Carnegie opened a larger mill just north from where the Calumet River flowed into Lake Michigan. And by the dawn of the 20th century, the southwestern crescent of that lakeshore, stretching from the Calumet eastward across the Indiana state line to Gary and Burns Harbor, had become the most dense concentration of steel mills in the world. Steelmaking was dangerous and strenuous work, as Frank Lumpkin well knew, but steelworkers had significant freedoms. There were no time clocks, and they could come out for lunch, a nearby barber recounted. The workers figured they could get their haircut on company time because it grows on company time. By 1980, the region's mills had sustained generation after generation of working-class families whose breadwinners didn't need to graduate high school to get jobs that paid 3 times what college graduates could earn as public school teachers. Frank and his wife Bea had raised 4 children during their 31 years of marriage, and they had just moved to South Shore, a middle-class neighborhood a bit northwest of where Carnegie's mill, now United States Steel's huge South Works, employed almost 3 times the 3,450 men who worked at Wisconsin. South Shore was a comfortable area for an interracial couple. Frank was black, Bea white, and tolerant, too, of a couple who had spent many years as dedicated members of the Communist Party USA. Frank's fellow workers at Wisconsin, black, white, and Hispanic, didn't view him as a radical, just an outgoing man who had worked his way up through the odd series of job titles a steel mill offered: chipper, scarfer, millwright. A little after 3 p.m. that Friday, Frank limped across Torrance Avenue to the Progressive Steel Workers, or PSW, Union Hall just north of 107th Street. The PSW was a so-called independent union, not part of the United Steelworkers of America or any labor federation, but it was actually no more independent than it was progressive. Its first president, William Riley, was a Wisconsin steel worker, but he left his union post to become chief labor spokesman for International Harvester, Wisconsin Steel's corporate owner. PSW's current president, 43-year-old Leonard Tony Rocky, had been in office since 1973 and had engineered an almost 50% increase in union dues, increased his own salary by thousands of dollars, and was overseeing a $150,000 expansion of the Union Hall. Rocky was widely seen as nothing more than a flunky for the political king of South Chicago, 10th Ward Alderman Edward R. Fast Eddie Verdoliak, whose law firm received an annual retainer of $30,000 from the PSW, and whose election campaigns the union had also contributed to. Verdoliak was a graduate of the University of Chicago's highly prestigious law school, but some acquaintances remembered him more for the charge of attempted murder that had been filed against him and then dropped during his law school years. The phone call Frank would always remember came when he was speaking with Union Vice President Steve Plesha at about 3:30 p.m. The message was abrupt. Wisconsin Steel was closing. The workers were being sent home, and the gates were being locked. He looked at me, and I looked at him because I couldn't believe it. I had just been there 20 minutes ago, Frank recalled a decade later. What's more,